Hello everybody and welcome back to another video and we are going over the books I read this February. And I've read quite a lot of books, and I am very excited because this month was a really good reading month, and I kind of just felt like I could finish 2 books in a day. They were that good. I was reading so much and I really was enjoying it. I started the month off with The Hawthorne Legacy, which is the second book in the series of the Inheritance Games, but I don't know where my copy went. It was I think it was a library copy, and I returned it, and anyways, but The Hawthorne Legacy was truly really good. I'm still a little pissed about some choices and decisions that were made, but obviously that's how you know a series is good, when you have quite a lot of opinions that are still keeping you up at night. It really was a good book. There's always seems, Jennifer Lynn Barnes is her name, she always seems to have really good twists in her books, and The Hawthorne Legacy did not stop there. The Inheritance Games really built The Hawthorne Legacy up, and it really did keep building. There were so many storylines, so many puzzles, and so many like little things that just really made the book special. I really did enjoy it, and it wasn't my favorite out of the series, but it was still quite a good book, and I think it really did build some character to the series and added more depth to it. So I would give The Hawthorne Legacy about a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Wasn't my favorite book, but again, it was still enjoyable, and it was part of a series I loved dearly, so that definitely made up for some things that I wasn't happy about that were happening or how the book ended. The next book that I read was We Almost Kissed and the One Time We Did. This is by Tess Sharpe. It's about 2 girls, Penny and Tate. Penny and Tate have kind of been like frenemies ever since they were little kids, and their moms are best friends. And then when Tate's mom is sick with cancer for another round, with liver cancer or something, and Penny's mom decides to give up her lung, and like they have a lung transplant or something, so Penny's mom is giving Tate's mom her lung to help save Tate's mom from cancer. And to make things easier for both of the mom's recovery, Penny and Tate have to move into each other, and that would be okay, besides that they have a little bit of a thing going on where they're not like the best of friends, and they have some history and some moments where they almost like are 1 inch away from kissing each other, and they always get little buzzes when they're near each other. Truly, it's such a slow burn, and everyone's like, oh my god, you like each other, and they're like, oh my god, we don't. And then it like develops, and when they're alone for a month, when their moms are in the hospital in Sacramento getting over things happen. There's discoveries, there's rehashing out things that have happened in the past with them, and the times they've almost kissed, and there's past exes, there's truly like discovering feelings, there's secrets and everything. It is really a really good book, and the ending did really make me happy. It was such a little sweet little lesbian rom-com that it just made my heart die. I would rate this book like a 4 out of 5. It was really good. It made me really happy. It was a really nice read. The next books I read was Fine Print by Lauren Asher. I believe she has more books because there's 3 brothers in here. And this was Rowan's book, I think her first book of the 3 series of the brothers. And so Rowan's grandfather dies, and he is the owner of Dreamland, which is basically an off-brand Disney World that I kind of think about it. So Rowan, what is he? He's the new like director. And so his job to get his share of the money so that his dad doesn't get it is that he has to be director for 6 months and make a change to Dreamland, which is their version of Disney World. He has to make the change to Dreamland so that he can get his share of the money. And so he stays in Dreamland and becomes the director, and he's head of the creators. So the creators pitch him ideas every week, and that he will occasionally use his big production at the end of the 6th month to appease a board that he has to impress in order to get the money and see that he actually made a change which his grandfather chose. And then Zara is just a regular worker at a hair salon, and then one night she drunkenly submits tearing apart their most popular, biggest ride for years. She's tearing it apart. She's drunk, so she uses bad words, and she submits the proposal, and then she moves up to the creator position by Rowan directly himself. And Rowan is kind of like a closed book, she's kind of a ray of sunshine. He's kind of grumpy, And so there's some twists. Rowan does some dumb things. Zara has a bad past with a relationship, so obviously there's twists and turns. And it truly was a good book. There were some things that happening that just made me very, very much invested and thought that the characters were crazy. But I really did like this book, and I would give it a 4 out of 5 stars. So again, we're on a high reading high, y'all. But so we got The Final Gambit. This book was good. This book was good. My personal opinion is that Avery starts technically becoming more of a bad bitch with her money. Obviously, the first book will always beat this book and the second book, but overall, I do think Avery had a really big character development. She started acting more badass. I think she grew up and matured in probably the best way in this book. And I think the whole storyline with the brothers was kind of getting better, and then it got worse. But overall, it really was a good book and still had the amazing twist, still blew my mind. It didn't blow my mind as much as the first book, but again, Jennifer Lynn Barnes never ceases to at least amaze my mind at least 6 times while reading this book. But I'm really hoping that the fourth one really redeems the second two, and I give this one a 3 out of 5 again. The first one was honestly just fantastic, and these books, they were good. They built the storyline. I would definitely recommend reading them, but they weren't as good as the first, which happens with most books. And then after The Final Gambit, I finally finished It Starts With Us. I already read It Ends With Us last month, and I didn't start It Starts With Us till obviously like 10 books later, but that's okay. I finally finished it. I really did enjoy it. It was a really, really fast read, and the thing, it wasn't as graphic, and there wasn't a lot of stress. Like, there wasn't a lot of climbing and then falling. There wasn't a lot of too many twists. And I know that sounds boring, but it honestly wasn't boring. Obviously, Colleen Hoover can obviously make a book good without it having too many like terrible twists, but this was just such a nice kind of sweethearted moment after the last book and everything that Lily went through. But I think it's so good. It ended really happy and lighthearted, and I think it was the best way to leave off these characters. And made me genuinely happy that they got a second book and that Atlas finally got his chance to speak his mind, because his mind, he's so sweet. There's like so many cute things that happen to these people, and the only twist isn't happening directly to Lily and Atlas. It's happening in one of their guys' lives. Like, it isn't directly towards a relationship. It's just something happening to each other's lives. It just shows that life happens and you can still be in a relationship and still be happy without the relationship also having problems. And I really did enjoy it. It was really lighthearted, but everything is calming down and you're finally getting what you wanted, the man that you wanted for the character you love. Because honestly, who doesn't love Lily Bloom? I think it's really good, and I'm very, very glad I finished it. So I rate this one like a 4.5 out of 5 stars. So that's nice. I read The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I have heard a lot about this, especially from Book Talk. Obviously, it did not have the best moments. So the thing I wasn't really warned about in The Cruel Prince, she builds her own world. Like, I can show you the first page is a map of her own world, and usually I'm not against that. Like, this is her world. I read Four Dead Queens. But there's like fairies and kind of cat, like, I mean, one of her love interests has a tail. It wasn't my cup of tea. I did enjoy it, but it wasn't my cup of tea personally. I don't want my love interest to have a tail curling around me. I don't. It was. And especially if you love like fairy tales, like goblins and bugs and fairies and gremlins and obviously cats. But this main character, and Jude got her parents killed right in front of her by her older sister's real dad, and they got carried off away from the mortal world to this world, and so they're one of the only mortals in all of like fairyland where everyone else is magic. And she wants nothing more to belong there, and she's still like taken over and by this guy named Carden and some of his friends who obviously belong in the fairy world. And Carden is the prince. He is the brother or something of the High King of fairy world, elf world, whatever I think this world is called. And then Jude gets a proposition to kind of have a place on court and have a place with power. And for that, she kind of has to defy Carden and kind of not back down or not hide from him like she has been all of these years. So that's kind of nice. And so it's not a bad book. Honestly, if you're like really into like the whole like fairy mystic world, portal through a mortal world, this is the absolute perfect book for you. And I'm not very much a different world kind of gal. And then, so I rate this book like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Second book of her little series called The Wicked King by Holly Black. So this is continuing on Jude's story, and this book was a little bit better than The Cruel Prince. She's end up having kind of a sort of thing with Cardan in this one. Their relationship really does make the book kind of worthwhile, which is not a bad thing. Like, obviously you want the relationship to be kind of a key point in the book, but I don't know, maybe it's also a negative thing that the book and the supporting lines of the world you were creating weren't supporting the book enough to be worthy to read the pages, even without the main character guy love interest on the page. But it was good. So she secretly is commanding him power behind the throne, so she kind of has power and is kind of controlling him and can give him commands, which he obviously can't refuse because she's kind of controlling, commanding him in this kind of like world phrase. And then things start happening and there's a lot of defying, and Jude kind of finds out that someone on the inside of her inner circle is betraying her for outside information and kind of trying to get the High King off his court so somebody else can be, and just some other things. So Jude's plans aren't entirely going as smoothly as she thought she did, and so it does end. At first I thought it was going to end really happily and kind of how I kind of wanted it to, and then it took me on a twist. It made me a little bit angry, especially at Jude, but Jude couldn't do anything about it, so I don't know why I'm a little stiff with her. But I am gonna have to read the third book to figure out what happens, and hopefully what deserves to happen to Jude and everybody else does happen. But it was a good book. It was obviously better than the first one, because the people that actually were together deserved to be together, and there were some interesting things in the storyline that weren't the relationship. So that's kind of fun, but it gets better, so I'm really hoping that's what's gonna happen in the third book, and I will maybe start loving the series and not just liking the series. But I rate this like 3.5, 4 out of 5 stars, because it obviously was better than the first one, and I'm really hoping that the third one gets better. But that is all I read in February this month. I read 7 books this month, and I read 6 last month, so I read 1 more this month. Maybe that's a new goal. I read 1 more book than I did last month, the next month's forward, but that's all I read this February. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will maybe see you later this month, or I'll see you next month. And happy March, and happy reading. Bye. Peace out.